Hello class! In this video, you are going to learn the basic principle of literary criticism and literary theory. But before we begin our examination and study of literary theory, it is important that we define exactly what literary theory is and is not, and then identify some of the main characteristics of such, as well as identify some of the key differences between traditional literary criticism and literary theory. Literary criticism rose since the late 19th century and appeared throughout European and North American intellectual circles, colleges, and universities in the middle part of the 20th century. The rise of literary theory during this time is owed to a number of social and cultural factors. In particular, these factors include the development of post-structural philosophy in American and European colleges and universities. The popularity of psychoanalysis, Marxism, and other social and cultural theories throughout the intellectual world, and the multi and cross-disciplinary academic ideology that began to pervade colleges and universities rose in the last half of the 20th century. Okay, let's begin our discussion by analyzing three photos that I have provided. They are three writers, popular writers, and from this photo, can you read this man's mind only by looking at his photo? Can you? Okay, what about this one? Can you read this man's mind? The last one, what about her? What about this woman's? Can you read this woman's mind only by looking at the picture? Okay, so this is related to the literary theory and literary criticism because it was the old way of reading when the authors were seen as single proprietors of the meaning of their writing, and readers took it at face value. And then later, on the 19th century, when the criticism or the literary criticism and literary theory rose, there is a new way of understanding or interpreting texts. So any piece of text can be read with a number of different sets of glasses, meaning that you are looking for different things within the text. Literary criticism helps the readers to understand a text in relation to the author, culture, and other texts. So it is strictly defined that literary criticism refers to the act of interpreting and studying literature. Before our discussion go further, let's try to differentiate between criticism, literary criticism, and literary critic. Literary criticism is the interpretation, analysis, classification, and ultimately the judgment of literary works. And that person may give a criticism. He or she may examine a particular literary work or may look at an author's writing as a whole. Literary criticism is a way of reading that enhances the understanding of the text by focusing on a particular element or perspective. And literary critic is someone who argues on behalf of an interpretation or understanding of the particular meanings of literary texts. The task of a literary critic is to explain and attempt to reach a critical understanding of what literary texts mean in terms of their aesthetic as well as social, political, and cultural statements and also suggestions. A critic does more than simply discuss or evaluate the importance of a literary text. Rather, a literary critic seeks to reach a logical and reasonable understanding of not only what a text author intends for it meant, but also what different cultures and ideologies render it capable of meaning. Okay, let's move to the elements of literature. From this picture, you can see that are two branches of literature. They are text and also the person. The text is the literary text, and the person can be the author and also can be the readers. Here you can see that literature has both a textual and a human element. As I said before, the human element contains both author and the readers. The elements here are the basis of the rhetorical triangle. So this picture is called as rhetorical triangle. You can look at the interaction between three elements of the triangle, the text, the reader, and also the author. They are interrelated each other, and critical theories are based on this triangle. The strategies may focus on the text, reader, or the author, and may also look at the interaction between the three elements. There is no single theory reveals the right meaning of the text. So I always say that you may use more than one theories because there is no right meaning of the text. So you need more literary theory to help you get the meaning of a text. And each approach has its advantages and also limitations. So the other theory may help you to get more proof and also knowledge. We also have some approaches to literary criticism. They are traditional and modern. Traditional approaches consist of historical or biographical approach and philosophical approach, while modern approach consists of new criticism, and the second one is psychoanalytical and feminism, Marxism, and the other approaches. I'm going to try to review some theories related to the approaches to literary criticism. They are psychoanalytic criticism, Marxist, feminist, reader response, and structuralist. The first theory is psychoanalytic criticism. It is how the text is shaped by its representation of the psychological desires, needs, and conflicts of its characters. While Marxist criticism, it means that it is how the text is shaped by its representation of capitalism and on or classism. While feminist criticism shows how the text is shaped by its representation of patriarchal norms and values. For reader response, you can take a look at how the readers make meaning as they read the text and what is the relationship between the meaning they make and the text. The next one is structuralist criticism. It is what the underlying structural system in which we make sense of the text, and structuralist critics often refers to a text's underlying structure and its grammar, which might be expressed as a kind of mathematical formula that represents the functions of a character and also their actions. And I also have a bonus on postcolonial criticism. It is quite popular criticism or popular theory because from this theory you can see how the text is shaped by its representation of cultural difference in the way in which race, class, sex, gender, religion, cultural beliefs, and customs combine into form of identity and individual identity. Talking about literary criticism and literary theory maybe get confused to differentiate between those two terms. So let's try to differentiate between literary criticism and literary theory. But before that, I want you to try to answer these questions. The first one is, what is the difference between the act of traditional literary criticism and literary theory? The second question, what are some of the critical advantages and disadvantages of literary theory? Try to find the answers of these questions before you go to the next slide. You can pause the video and then you can continue this video after you brainstorm or you find the answer of the questions. Yeah, let's discuss the differences between literary criticism and literary theory. Both terms have several perspectives, such as psychoanalysis and psychology. Literary theory refers to a particular form of literary criticism in which particular academic, scientific, or philosophical approaches are followed in a systematic fashion while analyzing literary texts. Literary criticism tends not to focus on a particular aspect of a literary text in quite the same manner that literary theory usually does. So it refers to the act or practice of studying and interpreting literature. While literary theory is challenging, especially for students, because it takes time, passion, and practice to get used to it. Let's go back to literary criticism. Here, literary criticism discusses or evaluates the importance of a literary text, and it can help you to understand the particular meanings of literary texts. While literary theory proposes particular systematic approaches to literary texts that impose a particular line of intellectual reasoning for it. For example, a psychoanalytic theory might take the psychological theories of Sigmund Freud and Carl Jung to seek to reach a critical understanding of a novel, such as Hemingway. A theorist applying Sigmund Freud's notion of trauma to Hemingway's, and he or she may try to explore the protagonist's psychology using Freud's theory. Literary theory, however, is more systematic, developed, and scholarly. So it needs more practice so that you can be able to use the theory to analyze the text. Study literary theory is challenging, especially for students who are relatively new to the field. It takes time, passion, and practice for students to get used to the unique and sometimes highly specialized language that literary theorists tend to use in their writings, as well as the often complicated and detailed arguments they make. So, as you are exposed to literary theory, take the time to carefully consider the argument being made, to reread when you find yourself confused by a statement, and to look up and acquaint yourself with any language or terminology you are exposed to and not familiar with. Literary theory can be quite challenging to master, but such nevertheless can allow for incredibly insights into literary texts that would otherwise be unreachable without making use of the interpretative apparatus of literary theory. So, why does literary criticism matter? Can you answer this question directly? Okay, there are three important points related to the importance of literary criticism. So, critical theories are tools in your hands, no more, no less. You can choose one theory and interpret literature through that lens alone, or you can become adept at using two, three, or more theories, even combining the insights they offer as you interpret a single literary work. You might produce, for example, an African American reading that draws on Marxist, psychoanalytic, and feminist concepts in order to interpret the representation of racial difference in a literary work. Or you might produce a feminist reading that draws on postcolonial and reader response concepts in order to analyze what you consider a recurrent misreading of literary work, for example, a West Indian woman. In fact, it is not unreasonable to argue that in order to be really proficient at applying some critical theories, it is necessary that you familiarize yourself with the theories on which they draw, because many Marxists, feminists, postcolonial, and also African American, they draw on one another's theoretical framework as well as on such theories such as deconstruction, with the response theory, and semiotics in order to analyze the form and processes of the oppression and the resistance to the oppression. The theory or theories you choose for a particular reading should depend mainly on two factors. One, your own ability to use the theory, and second, the literary text to which you plan to apply it. So, critical theories helps you to enlarge your understanding not only of literary works but also of human experience in general. It also informs you, your collective identity, your interpersonal relationship, your history, your cultural productions, and also the literature itself. That's all for my explanation related to the basic concepts of literary criticism and literary theory. If you have questions, feel free to ask. Thank you.